Quickly, AK, it is Halloween. It looks like Greg came dressed as a Dave Roberts respecter.
Wait,
That's
hold on.
really weird. I was not
A
expecting
Dave
that.
Roberts worshiper,
Wait.
even.
See, like, are you watching the YouTube stream?
I'm watching.
Say my name.
Not only am a Dave Roberts respecter.
Wow.
Not only a Dave Roberts respecter.
Wow.
That's a 30 right there.
Show the camera, sir. That's all.
That's what we're talking
Straight
about.
Roberts jersey.
You
How
have
about that?
almost reached the place, Greg Bergman,
How
where you
about
deserve
this?
Dave Roberts. You have
Wearing a
almost
Roberts
reached a place
jersey, CY.
because
You're not there yet.
okay,
You're not
Clinton and
there
I
yet,
talked
but
about
yes.
this before, and I'm going to get it out of the way early. And I
No,
want to say
it's such a ridiculous
no,
thing.
no. I want to say also
No, it's not.
because we are a station of the people. I heard from a lot of people last night requesting
A lot of
this
people-
morning.
a lot of
Many
people-
people are saying.
Many people are
Many
saying.
people are saying.
Many people are saying. Yes.
But I heard from
Say
a lot of
my name.
I heard from a lot of people at this station, a lot of our loyal P1s, a lot of the folks listening, that they wanted me to name some names of the people that did not deserve Dave Roberts. I'm going to do it once, and I'm going to get it over with. You will not hear it again.
go.
Okay, I just want to explain something about Dave Roberts after you name your names.
I'm going to name my names.
Oh, so you dressed as Dave Roberts Appreciator plus qualifier. I didn't see the qualifier
No, we had to-
on the side.
You will not hear of this again. So if you are not listening now, go find a friend who
I thought you were going
listens.
to say go F yourself.
No. The following people do not deserve Dave Roberts. Greg Bergman, Travis Rogers, Jorge Barones, Laura Romo,
I love this list.
and of course, Chris Morales. Y'all,
That's a 5-man squad.
but you get him anyway. You get him anyway.
So now Dave Roberts has been to the World Series 4 times in 8 years. He has won twice. He is in Dodger lore for the history of time. He is now gets a lifetime contract. When he wants to leave, he leaves. He is not being fired. That whole narrative is gone. Kaput.
Oh, and
the
Steve
whole
Mason
thing.
does not deserve Dave Roberts either. Now
Correct.
I'm done.
Now that you said the
Now
word
I'm
narrative,
done.
I was like, hold on, where's Mace?
I am done.
Yeah.
I
But
am done.
before the playoffs started, and we sat there on Mason Ireland, me, Mason Ireland, all talking about this, and it said, okay, this is the postseason for Dave. If it really is going to depend on what he does. If you lose to the Padres and in the first round to the division opponent for the first round for 3 years in a row, you're going to be fired. That's what happens in Los Angeles. Doesn't matter if you're a Laker head coach, if you're a Kings head coach, a USC head coach, a Dodger. It doesn't matter. All of them. But the fact is, it was going to come down to what he did and what his decision-making was from his gut. And he made almost every single correct move throughout the entire playoffs. Every time there was a gut decision that he had to do with his bullpen, he did the right thing over and over again. So no matter what, for all the people that don't deserve it, it doesn't matter. He did all the right things when it mattered most.
I think it matters for a reason of understanding who Dave is, because I think that we try to sort of, how do I say this? I don't think it's all gut, Greg. There's a lot of brain that comes with a lot of Dave's decisions. And I think that a lot of times when we look at what Doc has done from a managerial standpoint as a skipper, there's this assumption that all he's good at is, well, he only knows the players. All he can do is really go on field. But Dave is a pretty smart guy. You know, there were some decisions that were made here in terms of the series that I think had a lot more to do with just the guy that keeps the team together, that had to do with the guy that's pressing insert button here on any given game day. And that's what I think the strength ultimately, and quite frankly, you know, kind of speaking as a storyteller, the legacy of what Dave is going to be is, like, not a lot of people, when they look back at managers, think of day-to-day decisions. Like, Lasorda gets kind of, not to say a pass on that, but you press one button in Kirk Gibson, people think you're the greatest guy of all time, because you probably kind of are for doing that. But Dave's strength is managing the egos of the high payroll that we got to. That's literally what his best skill is. The day-to-day baseball, I think, is just something that, you know, he happens to excel at. But I agree with you, Greg. The fact that his legacy is cemented in terms of locally is really important, you know, to what this kind of generation of Dodgers fans really cares about. If you're a kid, let's just say you're, I don't know, 15 or 18 years old right now, Dave Roberts is all you know. It's all you've ever seen in terms of what you understand about the standard of excellence. And that standard of excellence is way higher as a particular unit than it is for any other team that wasn't, as you would say, Andy, the cheating Astros. You know, Dave has not only cemented himself in terms of the national legacy and the local legacy in a baseball way. He's very much now the image of what you think about, and there's no way around it anymore because it's not like you're just only showing pictures of, NLCSs. You're showing pictures of the World Series now, particularly in Yankee Stadium of all places.
I'd mentioned before Dave Roberts and the job that he did during this postseason. Greg Bergman wearing his number 30, his Dodger blue
UCLA
30.
Bruin, Dave
That's
Roberts.
right.
Too.
Yes.
You got a little double action there.
Clap from
Former
Dave
Dodger
Roberts.
player. Former Dodger player, Dave Roberts. But this was some of the best work Dave Roberts has done as a manager, period. And entering this postseason, there had been a lot of talk about if the Dodgers don't win it all, what happens with Dave Roberts. Dave Roberts likely loses his job. There was a lot of calls, period, for Dave Roberts to lose his job. He's not the right guy, whatever. And I don't think Dave Roberts was ever truly embattled in the sense that I don't think Andrew Friedman and the Brain Trust have ever wanted to get rid of Dave Roberts.
No, they didn't.
But if he had lost, if the Dodgers had lost in the first round against San Diego or in the NLCS against the Mets, like they get waxed, I think Andrew Friedman and the Brain Trust may have been aware that sometimes you have to sacrifice somebody.
You need a new voice.
That's the way this thing works. Fair or not, logical or not, maybe the right thing to do or not. Sometimes it happens like that scene in Succession. Remember when they were on the yacht and they're figuring out the Waystar scandal?
Yep.
And Logan Roy says, I'm going to need a skull. And everybody at that table knows the actual skull in a fair world would be Logan Roy's.
Yeah, but that's not happening.
Right. They all know that's not going to happen. And Dave Roberts has been in this game long enough to know fair ain't got nothing to do with it sometimes. And I think he was likely aware if we go out early, it's going to be me. And with that in mind, I wonder how much Dave Roberts this time around was following just all of his instincts, like all of his baseball instincts, all of his baseball feel, all of his baseball knowledge, just saying, you know what? If I'm going to end up losing my job, I'm going to lose my job doing it my way.
So for the most part, and CYU, I don't know if you agree with it, you were at every single game, but if for years past, Dave Roberts would let a guy just sit out there and die, basically, and not go out and get them. But he did the opposite this year. He went out and got, remember, I think it was game 3, two, actually. Michael Kopech was not pitching very well. Or was it even one? He was not pitching very well. And he went out there and he said, all right, you don't got it. I'm going to go get Blake Trinan. Blake Trinan, you got to get me 2 innings. Go through 2 innings to get this through for me. And that's not something he would normally do. When there's times when it was time to leave a guy out there, he left him out there. But if he had a quicker hook than he did in years past. And that was why it was so weird in last night's game. He let Jack Flaherty go 2 extra batters longer than I thought he was going to because he didn't really have a lot of guys. But it felt like the Yu Darvish year in 2017 where he just let him out there for way too long and they ended up losing all of it. But this year was different. When he was out there, he made sure to get guys before they were a mess. Consistently, before innings ended, he would bring them out, bring another guy in, let that guy go out and start the next inning. That was different.
I just wonder if the circumstances of, I'm sure Dave Roberts knew what was potentially at stake for him, and you just think to yourself, you know what? You can't fire me twice. So if I'm gonna get fired, I am doing everything my way. And we may have just seen the best version of Dave Roberts, in part because he was either empowered to be the best version of himself, or he just empowered himself to be the best version of himself.
Well, here's what I'm going to say to that, and I think we kind of fetishize pitching changes as sort of like the most important thing a manager ever does. But I do think that the difference this year with what Dave had to deal with was he had a limited roster in terms of what he was doing. I mean, part of the job here was legitimate managing and not just what a lot of people like to call strategizing. And so when you think about how they were setting things up, not just from a batter-to-batter standpoint, but from a game-to-game standpoint, is how he was going to deal with how do you manage a guy like a Yamamoto who's got a longer rest in a situation when you've got series that are shifting in terms of their length and their time, and what do you do if somebody goes wrong? They were more medium decisions to me that were important here than there were there were big time ones in games, and that helped him out with his in-game decision making, if that makes sense. It's sort of like if you go and put gas in your car the night before when you go to sleep, you don't wake up in the morning saying, oh dang it, I got to go to the gas station before I go to work, and you're scrambling because you forgot that the traffic was going to be there. Like, there were setups to how they managed all of this that I'm willing to credit Dave with, and a lot of people like to think that this front office is more responsible for certain parts of those decisions than others. But Dave is the guy that knows the team. And the simple way to figure that out is by asking the guys on the team. They talk about it all the time, about how what Dave does well is put them in positions to succeed. Whether or not they necessarily live up to it is a different matter. And this season, different than what you're talking about, Greg, I think, is that when you're forced, literally from a man management standpoint, to say, this guy's got to go because we just don't have enough guys, that's a different decision-making calculus than it is, who do I think can do this in this moment? He managed to do both this postseason. And that's I think, a testament to just how well he knows his roster and also how long he's been in the league. There's a certain element of experience that came with a lot of this where you thought, oh, all right, Dave's pressing on something that's a lot more than just what, sort of the average person who's watching a baseball game thinks or knows, and it really showed up. And I will always credit Dave with a couple of different things. Number one is, again, his relatability to players. Dave was obviously a famous player in the context of he was very famous for one thing, but people knew who he was as a ball player, but also he's not the type, like, I don't know, let's just say an Aaron Boone, who's going to let his guys get away with any and everything all the time. The reason why the Yanks were throwing the ball all around the yard last night is because they've been doing it all season. And Boone says nothing, just a hand wave. Dave is a guy that has some level of accountability with people, not just those on the bump, that I think showed up, and he balances that well with the personalities that he can manage. And yeah, the pitch-to-pitch stuff, the batter-to-batter things are one thing. But, again, I just want to stress this in terms of what his strength is based on what I've seen covering the bigs for a while is it ain't just pressing buttons. He is a literal manager.
Yep.
And that is something that I think, as in a world of analytics and rapsodos and all this other stuff, people think that the value of the position is much lower than it actually is from a numbers-to-numbers standpoint in the money ball of all of it. When you've got a guy like Dave, you realize what the human touch provides. And that was huge this postseason.
It can't be. You're right, and you can't be understated how much it is that it worked. Every button he pressed worked. Maybe he did the exact same things in years past, but they just didn't work. They didn't. Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman go 1 for 22 or 2 for 22, whatever it happens to be.
Remember, none of the buttons include guy play better.
Right.
Like Dave Roberts can't press the Mookie Betts play better button.
So
Freddie Freeman play better button.
Every move that he made worked, and that's what made this all possible.